Good afternoon, everybody. Big Mike back here with you once again. Welcome back to Big Mike Talks. A day early, I know, but I'll get to that in a second. Where I will be covering the week that was in pro wrestling. So that's going to be Monday Night Raw, NWA Power, and AEW Dynamite. A very mixed bag of a week. There was definitely some good, some bad, some right in the middle. And I will go over it. Reason why I'm doing this today on Thursday instead of on Friday. Friday for me is going to be a little chaotic, so I decided to do this a day early. So we are going to start off with covering the second episode of Monday Night Raw being broadcast on Netflix, which is still insane to think about. And then we start off with a recap of what happened on the first episode of Raw on Netflix, which I'm tired of stuff like that. Personally, I feel like that's just a time waster / time filler. That few minutes could have been used to, I don't know, maybe the Women's Intercontinental title match or something. Anyway, so we start off the proper show. We see CM Punk. He's in the car park, and he honks his horn, gets out of his rented car, because that is definitely a rental, walks right out into the arena, right to the ring, to cut a promo. And he's saying, "It does my heart good to be here tonight. And before we get to Punk business, I want to acknowledge everyone helping out with the fires in California." So that was a nice little add-on from Mr. Punk. Definitely cool to see. Then he starts with his, pre-written promo saying, "Netflix, there was so much pressure last week. Did you all watch me beat Seth? While I do have a lot on my plate, I can move on from Seth Rollins. And last year at the Royal Rumble, it didn't go my way. I separated my shoulder from the bone, and it caused me to see dreams fade. And while not everyone sees that big neon WrestleMania sign right over there, I'm gunning for the biggest comeback ever. Cena, I'll see you soon, and I always have. Because now CM Punk is entering the Royal Rumble, and I am going to win it. Burn it down!" This brings out Seth Rollins, goes right into the ring, grabs a microphone, says, "I know you're not happy to see me, but I said win, lose, or draw, I'd be here. I'm a man of my word. And if I didn't show when times were hard, I'd be you." Oh. Seth continues, "Last week was the worst week of my career, but I still have a target. I got one thing to do, and take your WrestleMania dreams and crush them. That being said, I'm going to win the Royal Rumble, and I'm going to take pride in winning and eliminating you." CM Punk then starts off, "I see a guy taking the easy route, but before he can continue, out comes Drew McIntyre," which, definitely glad to see him. Then he said, "Just when I thought you can't go any lower, you top yourself." Punk then says, "Last time I saw you, I put you down in the cell. And if you take one more step towards this ring, you're done." Drew then kind of has a befuddled look on his face, says, "Despite what you think, Punk, not everything is about you. I'm talking to Seth." "I'm sorry, what?" Anyway, Seth then says, "If you're not accepting his invitation, why don't you accept mine and come on down?" Drew then continues, "Have you looked in a mirror lately? At least he admits he's a piece of shit." Punk then chimes in, "I dragged you around the cell by your earlobe." Drew then says, "You're not a leader. I took out Jay. You're worried about this match. I've done having patience with this. I'm done talking." Seth then says, "You want to take a swing? Let's go." Drew, who's at the top of the ramp, says, "You want to throw hands again?" He starts kind of taking off his gear, then says, "No. You're not listening. There's a bigger problem coming in the WWE. I've always been the reluctant hero, and the only way to get to the title before Roman is to win the Rumble. I'll see you both there." So we now have Punk, Seth, and Drew joining Roman Reigns and John Cena in the Royal Rumble. If this doesn't get you at least drooling a little bit, you're outside your mind. This Rumble is going to be star-studded. And it's going to be interesting to see what surprises we got in store. I mean, hopefully, X-Pac. Then we get played the American Red Cross ad, which my heart goes out to all you in California suffering with what's going on. Then we get our first matchup of the evening, as it's Chad Gable versus the best luchador ever, who is revealed to be Penta El Zero Miedo, aka just Penta. Which it's definitely not the worst name change in the world, but it's so cool to see Penta in the WWE, and hell of a first opponent. Although I will say, the only thing that's got me, and everyone here knows it, it's the freaking Death Rebel theme. Like, good lord, you couldn't have, I don't know, taken a little inspiration from his AEW theme? At least that kicked ass. This was the most generic thing I've ever heard. Anyway, this matchup started with Chad Gable in control. You know, grounding Penta as he saw fit. Eventually, Penta does fight out of it, tries for a couple of roll-ups, but then that's when the lucha started, and oh boy, this was absolutely awesome. Bunch of super kicks, a drop kick. Eventually, Chad Gable did regain control by throwing Penta into the ring post. Gable then with a knee trembler. But then after a sling blade, a big old dive, getting him back in. A backstabber, which I'm surprised Penta pulled that out. Only for a 2 count. Chad Gable tries to get Penta in an armbar, but Penta gets in the ropes. Then he goes to the middle rope, hits a destroyer on Chad Gable, in which Michael Cole called it a Mexican destroyer. Don't do that. Don't do that, alright? It's just a destroyer. Don't need to put that stuff before it. Eventually, Chad Gable does lock in the ankle lock, but Penta fights out of it. Hits the sacrifice, which is his... When he's got... Penta has Chad Gable trapped on his side and, like, snaps his arm, which is honestly a brutal move. Then hits the Penta driver to signify his victory. And having that arm snap be his signature, definitely not a bad idea. And also seeing his family ringside and his, I'm gonna assume, daughter, getting emotional for him, that's cool, man. And then we got something very, very interesting. Something we don't really see from Penta a lot. It is a one-on-one interview in the ring. He says, everyone here, thank you. I want to say thank you, San Jose. This is my new home. I know everyone's been waiting for this. And for real truth, I too have been working for this moment for a while. I know this is a new era. This is the Netflix era. This is the new Penta era. He did say a little something in Spanish, but I don't speak it, so I don't really understand. Penta really well spoken for English not being his first language. Like, dang. That took me aback a little bit. Anyway, good seeing Penta in a prominent position. Hopefully we see him maybe against one of the big names coming soon. Like, honestly, underrated match that they could have. Give me Penta versus Braun Breaker at some point. Doesn't even have to be at, like, WrestleMania. Could be, I don't know, Saturday night's main event or something. I don't know. No, Braun already has a match. We'll get to that a little later. Anyway, so then we go backstage to the Judgment Day locker room. Finn, JD, and Carlito were talking. In walks Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. With saying, oh, you think you're funny? Then Finn says, so sure you'll be champion again one day. But this isn't just about the title. It's about taking revenge. So I'm going to let you guys get through your issues. And then Dom walks in. He's got a bouquet of flowers. He's trying to apologize to Liv. Liv then says, Dom, I'm not mad at you. Dom then says, are you sure? Liv then says, oh, I'm sure. But I got a plan ready to go. So why don't you go get my bags? And we'll reconvene later. So then Liv and Raquel leave. Then Finn, JD, and Carlito are left talking, saying, tonight I put an end to Priest. We're going to take back our tag team titles. And why don't you go to Pierce and tell him? Then Carlito said, no, then Dom, who's still kind of hanging out there, says, don't you need me for Priest? Finn then tells Dom, go handle Liv. Go get her bags. So yeah, Dom's a bit in the doghouse, but that's fine. I think we are imminently looking down the barrel of a Judgment Day breakup, which, yeah, it's about time. Judgment Day went as far as they could go. Here's how I can see things happening. I see Liv and Raquel being a doubles act, like Liv can be the Shawn Michaels to Raquel's Diesel. Dom, I think, goes solo. Maybe he goes to SmackDown. Gets away from his pop for a little bit. And then I think Carlito, JD, and Finn could fit together as a trio. So, I could definitely be interesting. Speaking of interesting, we've definitely seen this match a lot, but with Sheamus coming back from injury, we got Sheamus taking on Ludwig Kaiser. And despite Kaiser not exactly being, big, this was kind of a hoss fight. Like anything Sheamus dished out, Ludwig took and then brought back tenfold. He countered a 10 beats of the Bowery early on. Sheamus with a white noise from the top rope. Kaiser then goes outside the ring, grabs Sheamus' shillelagh, goes to attack him. Sheamus blocks it and then hits a knee to knock it out of his hands. Misses on a brogue kick. Kaiser hits his finisher, which I don't think has a name. No, goes for his finisher. Sheamus blocks it. Hits a knee. A rolling senton, which that's still impressive. It's a 2 count. Kaiser goes for a big boot. That whiffs. Sheamus with a brogue kick to pick up the win. And as Sheamus is celebrating, Braun Breaker, who's been sitting ringside, gets up in Sheamus' face. They look at each other. Braun then kind of pushes Sheamus, but officials are out to break it up. So, yeah, it looks like we're getting Sheamus versus Breaker sometime soon. If I remember correctly, it's going to be at the next Saturday night's main event, which, that should be fun. Then we get a Seth Rollins backstage interview with Sim saying, Punk has been needling me for months. I'm at my wit's end. I've been looking forward to this bout. So this match is going to be fun. Actually, he didn't say that about Punk. He said that about Drew. Because next week we're getting Drew versus Seth. Which, that should be a lot of fun. Then Sami Zayn walks in. And he says to Seth, I heard everything you had to say out there. If you want to talk, I'm here. Seth then says to Sami, I know it's been rough for you, but good for you for getting your team back together. Roman is the chief again. Are you going to help him and you helped him win that? Are you going to help him win the Rumble? Are you going to stay helping Roman? Or are you going to help yourself? Ooh, planting some seeds for Sami, who was the original guy to break out of the bloodline, only to go back in way too willingly. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. An interesting dynamic going into the Royal Rumble season. Then we see The Miz backstage. He's kind of hanging out in front of Adam Pearce's office. Then Cross comes out from the door. He says, well, I got some news for you. The Wyatt Six are moving to SmackDown. So Miz is kind of flustered with that. Then in walks Sami Zayn. So he's asking, is Pierce in there? Miz says, yeah. Miz then says, I heard the comments from Seth. You can see how friendships fall apart. Sami retorts, yeah, clever coming from you, walking around as Cross's lackey. No one has anything to worry about you. Miz then retorts, I am a multiple-time world champion. You aren't. Sami Zayn then retorts, I came walking around here looking for Pierce to handle some other business, but I can't wait to handle you. So I'm going to talk to Pierce. I want a match with you tonight. So Sami Zayn walks into the office. Miz turns to Cross, asks him, we can handle him, right? Cross kind of scoffs and says, we? And walks off. So Miz is going to be on his own later in a match against Sami Zayn. Then we get a promo from the World Heavyweight Champion, Gunther. He says, last week I followed Raw on Netflix, a visual attraction. In ring, less impressive. You will have a roster full of people to fulfill those expectations. Who cares? The only prize worth fighting for is the World Heavyweight title. This brings out Jey Uso. Great to see him. He does his whole entrance. He grabs a microphone. He says, did I hear you were looking for someone to care about this title? Well, you're looking at it. Drew's behind me. The bloodline drama is behind me. So why don't we do Saturday night's main event, you versus me for that? Gunther then kind of laughs it off, saying, oh, I'm laughing at you. I want to make sure you're serious about this. I'm happy that you found the courage to be naive enough to think I'm holding this forever. But I'm not dropping it to you. I beat you twice already for the Intercontinental title. I know what you're capable of, and it's less than me. And when that bell rings, I'm going to expose you for what you are. A tag team wrestler. And while the main event is your nickname, it's where I belong. So stay out of my business. Gunther then goes over the top rope, starts to walk to the back. Then Jey is like, hold on. Saturday night's main event is fine with me, but the choice is up to you. Jey continues, I do respect you. Everything you said is true. He is better than me. But I'm not supposed to be here. He's just a tag guy. And while I am scared to do this, I'm trying to earn my respect. And you're going to respect my ass when I beat you for the title. And it's not just a nickname. It's where I belong. Yeet. I love this promo. This was great from Jey Uso. Such passion, such great... This is why I like the main event Jey Uso character. It brings something a little different than just minion bloodline member. This is awesome. I can't wait for that match. It's going to be good. Then we get a little recap of the Women's Intercontinental title tournament to see how Dakota Kai and Lyra Valkyria got there. And we go on to our next match for the Women's Intercontinental title. It's Dakota Kai takes on Lyra Valkyria. And honestly, these guys, they pretty much countered everything they tried to throw at each other early on. But then Kai, with a big old brainbuster off the apron, gets her back in the ring with a bow and arrow. Kai gets out, blocking a suplex into a roll-up for a 2 count. Dakota Kai with a handstand kick, which that was impressive, into a Rana. Then Lyra with a lumbar lower, which that was impressive, only for a 2 count. Dakota Kai tried for the GTK, the Dakota Kick, which is a great name for a finish. That gets countered by Lyra, who hits a big old power bomb for a 2 count. Kai with a GTK, but Lyra rolls to the outside. Kai gets her back in, goes for the big boot in the corner, whiffs. Lyra with the neck breaker into the Nightwing for your winner and new Women's Intercontinental Champion, Lyra Valkyria. And post-match, they celebrate one another, and then they have a little embrace, which is nice after this match. I would have liked to see this match go a little bit longer. Not super much longer, but a little bit. Because this definitely felt like it was rushed. But happy to see a new champion. And yeah, we'll see what happens from here. As next, we see Finn Balor. He's warming up in the back. But first, we got to get to The Miz taking on Sami Zayn. And The Miz, honestly, kind of looking a little beat up out there. Especially after a big haluva kick. But Miz rose to the outside. Then Miz with a big boot DDT combo, only for a 2. Hits the it kicks. Sammy goes for the blue thunder bomb, that gets blocked. Miz goes for the skull crushing finale, that gets blocked into a roll up for a 2 count. Miz with Sammy with some elbows into a haluva kick and a blue thunder bomb for your winner, Sami Zayn. So I do hope we get to see something out of Sami Zayn soon, because I think he's earned a spot somewhere. And we see Rhea Ripley. She's arriving in the back. Makes it out to the arena to cut a promo saying, "Mommy is back on top." And I know it's like I've been a broken record, but I am Rhea Bloody Ripley, the most dominant woman in WWE, and once again, the Women's World Champion. Now, I knew someone was going to interrupt. I thought it was going to be Liv, but instead it's Nia Jax of all people. So she comes out. She has a microphone. She says, "I can't take this anymore." And I was in the back talking to Pierce about the transfer window and couldn't help myself. And Bayley, I don't know what you're doing here, but there's only one woman on top, and that's me. Not Tiffany, not you, Rhea, not even you, Bayley. Me. So Bayley jumps the barricade. She was sitting in the crowd. She grabs a microphone, says, "Can you come up with something different? Well, this is not my show. This is my city. I got something to say. If you got something to say it to my face." So Bayley gets up in Nia's face. Nia then headbutts Bayley. Rhea with a headbutt of her own. Nia with a couple of headbutts to Rhea. Rhea then with a big knee. Bayley with a big boot to send Nia to the outside. Yeah, this is definitely going to be interesting. Was not expecting Nia Jax, I'll admit. We then get full highlights of the feud between Finn Balor and Damian Priest since they broke him out of Judgment Day. As we go to our main event of the evening, and it's a street fight. Basically, weapons are included. I think it's Falls Count Anywhere. I'm not sure. As we got Damian Priest taking on Finn Balor. And Finn takes advantage early on. Attacks Priest before the bell rings. Grabs a kendo stick. Just starts wailing on poor Priest. Priest eventually gets up, hits a flapjack into the announce table. Finn tries for an axe handle, but that gets caught into a slam into the announce table. Priest then gets a regular table, sets it up on the outside. Finn with a chop block. Priest then sends Finn over the barricade into the crowd. They fight in the crowd for a little bit. Finn gets a trash can. Hits a couple of trash can shots. Priest fights back. Hits a cannon shot of his own. Hitting a snake eyes into the barricade. Brings him back over ringside. Then hits a couple of strikes. Hits a broken arrow through the table he set up. Actually, no, this isn't ringside. This is on the other side of the arena. They're up on some equipment boxes. And, Priest with a broken arrow through the table. We go to commercial. We come back. We see Finn getting strapped up to a stretcher with the rest of Judgment Day, minus Dom and Liv and Raquel, checking on him. And as Finn is getting stretchered out, Priest goes right after him. He fights off JD and Carlito. Then Priest unhooks Finn out, gives him a couple of strikes to the head, rolls the stretcher back down the ramp and into the ring. Priest with a couple of clotheslines, goes for the South of Heaven, but Carlito stops in, hits a backstabber. Then Carlito and JD start beating down Priest. JD with a moonsault. Then Finn's up. He takes off his neck brace. It's a coup de grace, only gets a 2 count. Then JD goes to the outside, gets a table. He sets it up. Before Judgment Day can do what they want, out come the tag team champions, the War Raiders. They fight off Finn and JD. Hit the War Machine on Finn Balor. And then they brawl to the back with the other 2 members of the Judgment Day. Then Finn gets up, hits a sling blade. Gets in a couple of chair shots. The chair is then set on Priest's neck. On Priest's chest. Finn goes for the drop kick. That gets countered right into a South of Heaven with Priest still wearing it, which is crazy. Only for a 2 count. Priest goes for a Razor's Edge. That gets blocked into a Sling Blade. Then Priest gets set on the table on the outside. Finn with a coup de grace through the table. And then Priest spears him through the barricade. And Priest gets Finn Balor up. Sees the other table that's set up. Razor's Edge through the table. Gets him back in the ring. South of it. And then says right to Finn Balor, "I will not be my brother's keeper." Hits a South of Heaven chokeslam to pick up the win. And that was an absolutely awesome way to finish Monday Night Raw. I do hope, against hope, that this is the end of the feud between Judgment Day and Priest. It's time to move Priest away and get something else for Finn Balor and co. to do. So, that was Monday Night Raw. Definitely way more entertaining than the first episode on Netflix, which I felt like was more for the corporate side of things. You can watch from my review on my channel. But, yeah, this was definitely a big improvement from last week. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what we got coming in the next couple weeks as we build to Saturday night's main event and then the Royal Rumble, in which I might have some news about that. Just you wait. So next up, gonna talk a little NWA Power, which definitely very entertaining. We start off with a hoss fight, as it's Thrillbilly Silas Mason of the Southern Six taking on NWA kind of newcomer Mr. Grimm. And if you haven't seen Mr. Grimm wrestle, he's surprising. Like, he's quick, he's powerful, he's honestly is the total package. And they start off by pretty much biting one another, which that's definitely interesting. One point you see Thrillbilly going for a big power bomb, but that gets countered into a roll-up by Mr. Grimm, only for 2. Thrillbilly whiffs on the big boot. Mr. Grimm with a suplex, clothesline combo for a 2 count. Thrillbilly tries for a scoop slam that gets blocked into a rolling senton and a power slam, only for a 2. Then Mr. Grimm gets Thrillbilly up for a bear hug, but Thrillbilly gets into the ropes. After a quick flurry from Mr. Grimm, eventually Thrillbilly does grab Mr. Grimm. It's a Death Valley driver into a thrill ride to pick up the win. That was a nice little hoss fight. I do wish it got a little bit longer to develop, but I do hope we get to see these two clash again one day, because that was fun. We then get a promo from Lily La Vista, what's her name? Ruiz, where she introduces herself to the NWA, saying, "Hey, Hollywood Haley J, I make you my first victim." And I like her energy. Like, she's maybe not a super newcomer to the NWA, because she was in the Gauntlet match earlier this year. But we're going to be seeing her go one-on-one with Haley J a little later, so that's fun. And then this is where we get a little interesting part, as we get Pretty Empowered, so that's Kylie and Kenzie Page, our women's champion, taking on Caribbean Flows, so that's La Rosa Negra and Ruthie J. And yeah, this match was very, very interesting. A lot of really good back and forth. Although the finish came very, very interestingly. Pretty Empowered were in control. Then La Rosa Negra accidentally hit Ruthie J, who was on the apron. Kenzie with a big roll-up to pick up the win for Pretty Empowered, who bail out of the ring as they're celebrating. Then we see Ruthie J and La Rosa Negra. They're staying in the ring. They kind of argue with each other for a little bit. La Rosa goes to leave, Ruthie J attacks La Rosa Negra from behind. It's an eat defeat, couple of stomps, couple of big strikes and head smashes to end the segment. And oh boy, this was gonna be interesting. So, no more Caribbean Flow. Hopefully we get to see some fresh faces in the women's tag division, because I think they need it. Then we get a kind of half Mims interview, half, what's his name? I forget the dude's name. Paul Burchill interview, which they go back and forth between two separate interviews. It was very weird. Basically, Mims saying, you know what really bugs me? People who can't get over a loss. Paul, you lost. I'm the champion. We are winners. You lose. I don't entertain losers, but we're in the business of winning matches, and you've earned this ass whooping. So I did kind of get the Mims part. I didn't really get the Paul part, who was like, oh, it's about respect or whatever. That was a tough way to go. Like, I kind of hope they focus a little bit more on one interview instead of doing it like this. Then we get a very interesting tag match, as we got Daisy Kill and Talos taking on Judas and Gags the Gimp of the Miserably Faithful, which I'm surprised they're still together after what Max the Impaler did to Father James Mitchell. We start out with the Hoss Boys. We got Talos and Judas, and they just start beating the snot out of one another. And during it, Daisy Kill just kind of tags himself in. He sees the big man, tags himself out to the big man. They go back and forth a little bit. Daisy Kill keeps tagging in, getting some stuff in, tagging out. Talos at one point goes for a big choke slam, but that gets blocked into a body slam by Talos. Judas. Then Daisy Kill and Gags tag in. Gags just starts chopping the heck out of Daisy. Then it's a couple of shoulder strikes. Does the horn thing. Daisy Kill fights back. Tries for a body slam, but that gets blocked into a heel kick. Then Gags finally gets to unzip his mask, revealing his weird tongue. Judas gets tagged in. Gags with a sliced bread. That was impressive. But Talos comes in, immediately hits a powerbomb. Clotheslines Judas over the top rope to the outside. Gags with a gore. But he turns around right into a choke slam from Talos. So your winners are Daisy Kill and Talos. Overall, this was a very, very fun matchup. With a couple of guys who have some great chemistry that I didn't think they would. So, this is definitely an interesting way to go. Then we get a Mike Mondo interview, in which, if you don't know who he is like 1/5 of the Spirit Squad team from back in the day. If y'all remember those guys. And he says, my goals, I'm a little pissed off. The NWA better recognize my greatness. I've studied this roster top to bottom, and I have one target in mind. And if he remembers me, I know who you are, and you'll soon know why I'm here. So, a little bit more vague than I would have liked to. It was kind of like his first promo. But we're going to see what happens. Because I'm intrigued who he's targeting. We then get an Around the Territory segment, which that does the potty good. We then get this very interesting one-on-one contest as Hollywood Haley J takes on Lily Ruiz, making her one-on-one debut. And initially they just go after each other's hair. We have a dance-off for a second, which is funny. But then Ruiz, with a couple of shoulder blocks, a hip toss, goes for the baseball slide, but Haley J traps her in the ring skirt, starts beating on her for a little bit, gets her back in. Haley J with the Shining Wizard only gets a 2. Hair mare, which looks painful. Then Haley tries to tie Ruiz's hair into ropes, but that ultimately doesn't work because it's not that long. Ruiz tries to fight back, but then Haley with a cross chop, hitting a suplex. Ruiz tries to fight back again. Haley J locks in the sleeper, but Lily fights out. He's a big old boot, couple of strikes. Haley with another cross chop. Enziguri into a spine buster for a 2 count. Haley goes for a Death Valley driver. Ruiz goes for a Death Valley driver. Haley J with a cross chop block from behind into a curb stomp for the win for Hollywood Haley J. That was a very entertaining matchup. Gonna be interesting to see what Ruiz is all about later on. Now we get our main event of the evening, and it's a tag team match playa as the Slime Balls, which are Chance and Rant, take on Wrecking Ball Legursky and the Boss Jay Bradley of the Fixers. And before the bell, the Fixers attack the Slime Balls. We have Sage and Jay start. Jay pretty much overpowers Sage, eventually tags in Rant. They work together to take the big man down, including a damn crazy Hurricane Rana. This brings in the Wrecking Ball, who pretty much starts wrecking things. Goes for a power slam, but Rant counters out of it. Tags in Sage. They do all kinds of double team stuff, including a couple big axe handles. Wrecking Ball tries for a clothesline. Whiffs. Rant with a clothesline of his own. Right into the corner of the Fixers. Jay tags in. Goes for a big splash. Whiffs. Sage with a big kick. Brings in Rant for a drop kick. Goes for a suplex, but of course Wrecking Ball is way too big. Wrecking Ball with a suplex of his own starts just wailing on poor Rant. Rant then fights. Sage then fights back for a little bit. Tags in their partners. Sage with a couple of drop kicks and knees. Goes up for the crossbody. Gets caught. But Sage comes in and they kind of do a little trip action, which was funny. Jay with a pop-up flapjack, which that was impressive. Into a big splash. Then Wrecking Ball just starts choking his opponent. Wrecking Ball tags in his partner. It's a scoop slam. A splash. And then Jay with a big knee drop. Then Wrecking Ball has Sage in for a military press slam. That gets blocked into a roll-up. A roll through into an enziguri. Then the Slime Balls hit a gooey top 10, I guess it's called. But Wrecking Ball breaks out of it, tags in Jay Bradley, hits a big old boot, a splash. But the Slime Balls hit a chop block on him. Wrecking Ball with a big splash. But then out comes Carson Drake, who I don't know any association with the Slime Balls. Grabs Sage, drags him out of the ring. Bell rings, so your winners by disqualification, the Slime Balls. So then this leads to a side Slime Balls and Carson Drake interview, with Drake saying, "No, the Fixers DQ'd the Fixers. We'll get them next time." So I guess the Slime Balls and Carson Drake are going to be an alliance now? I'm not sure. This is a weird one. So then we go backstage for a William Patrick Corgan interview, the owner of the National Wrestling Alliance, where he said, "I must make a call and restore order to the NWA. EC3 and Tom Latimer has been nothing but chaos." So at Looks at Kill, which is their next big show, we're not going to have just one, we're going to have 2 cage matches. It's going to be EC3 versus Tom Latimer in a cage, and then Tiffany Nieves and Natalia Markova in a cage. Both of these must end. So, yeah, definitely an interesting episode of Power. Wrestling was really, really good. It's definitely going to see the explanations of things going forward, like the alliance of Carson Drake and the Slime Balls. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. We now move on to our final show of this video. It's AEW Dynamite Maximum Carnage, which I love the name of that. And we start up with a lead up hype video for the things that are going down on this show. Which, honestly, the production on these is on point. Whoever's doing these hype up videos / superstar videos, vignettes, needs a raise in AEW. And then we move to our first matchup of the evening, as the Machine, Brian Cage, takes on the returning Best Bout Machine, Kenny Omega. God, it is so good to see him back in a ring. And I was actually there for his last match before he went down with diverticulitis, which, now looking back on it, that was terrifying, the shit he pulled off with MJF. And yeah, this was pretty much Brian Cage overpowering Kenny Omega. Omega getting his shots in, including Cage trying for a powerbomb, Omega blocking it in midair, hitting a Hurricane Rana. Omega then looks to hit a dive on Cage, who is on the outside, but Cage's partner, Lance Archer, gets on the apron in the way. This leads to Brian Cage coming back in the ring, hitting a big old boot and then a clothesline. Cage then with a military press slam into the announce table for Omega. Then Cage gets back in the ring, gets right into the ref's face, so that Archer and Don Callis, who is on commentary, get some shots in on Omega. They get Omega back in the ring. Cage with a superplex, only for a 2 count. They trade strikes and chops. Omega tries to fight back with a couple knee strikes. Tries for a Rana. That gets blocked into a powerbomb. And then an F10 or an F5, whatever you want to call his finish, only for a 2 count. Omega fights back. Goes for a moonsault, whiffs. Cage with a pump handle bomb for a 2 count. Cage tries for a superplex. That gets blocked into a powerbomb off the middle rope. Omega with a knee strike, only for a 2. He whiffs on the V-trigger for the first time. Cage tries for a suplex. That gets blocked into a big boot. Omega with a knee strike, hits the V-trigger, gets Brian Cage up, struggles to get him up, hits the one-winged angel for the win. So your winner, Kenny Omega. But this leads to Lance Archer and then Kyle Fletcher coming out and starts attacking Kenny Omega post-match. Will Ospreay eventually makes the save again. Archer tries for a chokeslam on Will Ospreay. Ospreay with an enziguri. Omega with a big knee. Ospreay with a hidden blade. And then they have their face-off. A kind of, can they coexist storyline, kind of. But then Cage with a tries to come back in. It's a big boot and then a big dive. Then this brings out the international champion, Konosuke Takeshita, who has been in Japan for a while. And he just starts brawling with Kenny Omega. And then Cage with Will Ospreay, who then hit a big suplex and a clothesline on both of them. Ospreay then eats an eye rake into an elbow, and then a brainbuster. Archer with a falcon arrow. And yeah, the Don Callis family leaves Omega and Ospreay laying on the mat. And then you see Don Callis himself getting some cheap shots on a downed Omega. That was a hell of an opening bout. I'm so happy Kenny Omega's back. And there are some matches coming that I'm super excited for. I can't wait. Then we see a Hurt Syndicate promo where they're in like some equipment area or somewhere in the bowels of the arena, with MVP taking the lead saying, "I'm not just a bookie for the Syndicate. For the first time in 2 years, MVP will be taking off the suit and getting back in the ring." Then Bobby Lashley chimes in saying, "We are the Hurt Syndicate and we hurt people." Again, a nice, well-produced promo video. AEW, give whoever's doing this some money. And then we go to our obligatory Chris Jericho promo, because why not? Although it's more the New York Minute style, which I kind of like. Like, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I kind of dig it. It beats, TV time, at least. Anyway, Jericho hypes up his 12-man tag on Collision, saying, how are the Learning Tree gonna... how are the Learning Tree gonna get along with the Death Riders? Mox, I've known you a long time, and I know we'll be on the same page. Right? Kind of questioning it. I got a funny feeling something's going to go down for a Collision. And I know a lot of people aren't so into this 12-man tag. But I think it's going to lead to some storylines. Anyway, so next up we get Ricochet out into the arena. He's about to cut a promo, and everyone's just booing him. Then we hear some "Whose house? Swerve's house" chant from the crowd. Then Ricochet gets a chance to speak, says, "It's okay. That's how it's going to be. Well, a picture is worth more than 1,000 words." And then she shows a picture of him attacking Swerve with scissors from the week prior. And then we get the music drop. "Whose house? Swerve's house." And Ricochet is looking panicked towards the entranceway. Then Prince Nana slides in with a chair. Big old chair shot to Ricochet. And as he's doing this dance, out comes Swerve. And he's got a big old chain with him. So you know he's going to try to do damage. He goes to swing the chain. Ricochet moves. And he kind of beelines it for the exit with Swerve right behind him. Chases him into the crowd, but ultimately loses him when Ricochet goes out the side door. I'm going to guess that was. So, Swerve Ricochet match in the future. I'm ready for that. We then get a Mercedes Moné highlight video, which was very, very interesting. Showing off what she does in the daily life, which is honestly really neat. It's kind of a backstage look into the life of a wrestler. And then seeing her carrying all 4 of those titles is honestly really cool looking. She's the belt collector of the new age, and it pisses some people off. So, next up, we got a trios match, as we got Private Party, our AEW Tag Champions, along with Mark Briscoe, taking on Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and MVP, getting in the ring for the first time in 2 years. That's right, it's the Hurt Syndicate. Before the bell, the Syndicate jumps Private Party and Briscoe. That just leaves Mark Briscoe and MVP in the ring. And MVP still got it. Like, dude never lost it. He put on a hell of a bout with Mr. Briscoe, including some big old body slams. Hits the ball in, elbow drop, which hearing the crowd do that again was absolutely awesome. Took me back to the days when MVP first got started. And MVP did a lot of wrestling. I will admit, I was impressed. Eventually, MVP tags in Shelton Benjamin. Mark Briscoe tags in Brother Zay. Zay with a crazy looking crossbody into a dropkick. Tags in his boy Quinn. Hits a dropkick into a cannonball, which that was crazy. Quinn goes for a suplex, that gets blocked. Shelton Benjamin with a couple enziguris, hitting a clothesline over the top rope. Goes for the powerbomb, that gets blocked into a flatliner, only for a 2 count. Then Private Party with Poetry in Motion. Honestly, they make that move look really, really good. No offense to the Hardy Boys. Looks like they're going for gin and juice, but that gets countered by the Syndicate. With Shelton Benjamin hitting a couple of suplexes. Lashley with a spear. Benjamin with a big boot. A super kick. And your winners, the Hurt Syndicate. And honestly, that match was so much fun. And with the Hurt Syndicate pinning one of the tag champions, you gotta know they're going after the tag titles. And all I'm gonna say, it's finally to have a story where the tag division is featured. Then we get some highlights of Dynamite from last week, which were very, very nice. Then we kind of had a rated FTR vignette where we see how this team came together with FTR helping Edge Copeland training for his comeback, which that feels surreal. That feels like it was like 10 years ago now. It's insane. So, anyway, cut back to the ring. We get a Jeff Jarrett promo, which, glad to see he's still up and up. And he starts off saying, last few weeks have been humbling. Then out comes MJF, which, this promo kind of dragged the show down a bit for me. Him saying, humbling? You have yet to learn the definition of the word. Last week, I gave you the opportunity of lifetime, and you denied me. Jeff Jarrett interrupts, saying, you got lazy. You didn't want to be in the gauntlet match, so you came up with some crazy scheme. Then MJF yells, don't interrupt me! Which, that got me a little scared. MJF then composed himself, saying, I'm MJF. If I were to retire tomorrow, I'll be in the Hall of Fame. And let me school you on the real legacy of Jeff Jarrett and what you see when your favorite wrestling company dies. God damn. He is the definition of the pro wrestling Grim Reaper. Oh my goodness. MJF continues, I saw your career. It drives me to drink. And that's kind of a low shot with MJF saying, oh, sorry. I know you're a drunk. Sorry, recovering alcoholic. And I have an idea. For the health of yourself and the company, why don't I send you back to rehab? Oh, but Karen can stay. I'm a big fan of hers. But when I send her back to you, I'm going to show her what a generational talent and an Olympic gold medalist can do. Balls taste like. Oh my God. MJF continues. Now I'm going to get down to business. Clearly the best years are behind you. The fan base awakens your passion. This is Jeff Jarrett saying, I'm going to keep it going until I'm champion. And think you're going to hurt my feelings by coming out here. I was you before you were you. I did it all before you were, and I'm better than you at it. And I can't tell you if you're a dumbass or a scumbag or both. But there's days I feel sorry for you. And let me get you a little bit of your history. You've been through a tough upbringing. It's tough being raised by a call girl mom and an ambulance chasing father. And you know how we say we all marry our mommies? Well, yours is nothing but a Canadian call girl doing 60 minutes through. And MJF, you need me because you're drowning in your own shit. You're scared of everything. You're scared of being a one-hit wonder. MJF retorts, No. I am nothing like you. I didn't need you to this. I didn't need my dad to start a company so I can be a top guy. MJF made MJF. And I'm here to thank for everything here in AEW. I was best in the world. Then I got screwed. And some people who put me on a pedestal took it away. I don't want to win. I need to win. And I gotta wait in line behind Jeff Jarrett? Let me tell you something, buddy. No wrestling fan gives a shit about you. And you know what pisses me off the most? Just because you were friends with Owen, you deserve some grand finale. But you're just riding a leech, riding on the coattails of your old friend Owen. And before he could finish, Jeff Jarrett just takes a strike at MJF. This brings out security, and then Karen Jarrett, who, good to see her back, can't believe I'm saying that, who peels Jeff Jarrett off of MJF. Then MJF grabs Karen, pulls her in front of him, and then pushes her down and runs off. So, yeah, definitely, Jeff Jarrett MJF feud. I am definitely in for it, but good lord, this promo went way too long, and it was just, it was an MJF off. What can I say? Both guys going for the low-hanging fruit, talking about, mothers being call girls or whatever. Oh god, this was definitely tough to sit through. Hopefully we can just end this feud sooner rather than later. We then get a hype video for Okada versus Ishii for Collision, which that should be a fun one. Those two got tons of history. Speaking of tons of history, we got Christian Cage taking on Hook. And then Hook doesn't wait for the bell. He attacks Christian Cage on the ramp. And then as Hook is tossing Cage into the ring, Mama Wayne gets in Hook's face for a minute and backs off. They get in the ring. And Hook just starts laying it to Christian Cage for a while. Cage rolls to the outside. It looks like he's going to leave. Hook brings him back in, hits a couple of uppercuts, a couple of chops. Then Cage, who's kneeling in the ring, is like, whoa, Hook, come on, man. I love you like a brother. Let me do this. Extends his arms, goes for a hug. Cage then hugs Hook. You can see Hook is just like, ugh. Then gets him with a big old Saito suplex. Starts just beating down on Cage in the middle of the ring. Goes for a Death Valley driver that gets countered. Knocks Cage over the top rope. Hook with a flying elbow drop. But then this is where Cage turns it around. Tosses Hook into the ring steps. Goes for a stomp. Misses it. Hook then trips Cage into the steps. Gets him back in. Cage with a bunch of frog splashes, only for 2. Then he sets up for the spear, goes for it. Hook blocks it with a knee. But then Cage rebounds, hits the spear, only gets a 1 count. Then Hook starts beating up Cage again. Goes to lock in the Red Rum, but Cage gets in the ropes. Tries to lock in the Red Rum again, but Cage with an eye rake tosses him into the ring post to the outside. Then the rest of the patriarchy look like they're going to beat up Hook, but Kazuchika Shibata gets in the way. Eventually, Shibata gets Hook back in the ring. Cage with a reverse DDT on Shibata gets back in the ring. Hook goes for the Red Rum, that gets blocked. Cage goes for a kill switch, that gets blocked. Right into the Red Rum. And it looks like Cage is finally going to tap. But Sabian and Nick Wayne get in the ring, break it up. So the match is thrown out. Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian then go under the ring, grab a couple of chairs. Sets Hook up for the concerto. It looks like Taz is about to get up from commentary and save his son. But making his grand return, saving Hook, it's Samoa Joe. And he gets a great big reaction. He fights off the patriarchy kind of himself. And then Shibata in with a penalty kick. And, yeah, that was great return from Mr. Samoa Joe. Glad he's back to help his buddies. And hopefully these three maybe get their trios titles at some point. Then we get a little fallout video of the Casino Gauntlet match from last week for the men, in which we hear from Jay White, the Undisputed Kingdom, a couple other people setting up some feuds going forward, which definitely interesting. Then we have a backstage Jeff Jarrett interview. And before he can really get started, Dustin Rhodes walks in. It's good to see Mr. Rhodes back. Saying to Jeff, how many years have we known each other? We've been grinding our asses off our entire careers. MJF doesn't know anything about that. I am 110% behind you. MJF doesn't have a clue. And whatever he does to you, you've been through it. And outlaws never die. We are the very last of our kind. So, looks like, yeah, Dustin and Jeff Jarrett are going to be a unit, which, that could be fun. Then we get the Women's World Champion on commentary, as next is the Women's Casino Gauntlet match, where basically, big old multi-person match. It's kind of Royal Rumble-esque, but it's not an elimination. It's one pinfall / submission for the win. And our first two competitors out. Number 1, Chris Statlander. Great to see her get a spot. Number 2, Jamie Hayter. So that's a bit of a surprise. I don't think these two have ever shared a ring together. So seeing them start off was really, really good. And they pretty much threw haymakers at one another. Especially finishing off with Statlander hitting a Blue Thunder Bomb for 2. Number 3, making her AEW return, Megan Bayne. If you don't know her, she was in AEW during the Dark era. And I don't mean like, oh, it's dark because it's bad. There was a show on YouTube when AEW first got started called AEW Dark, which was mostly untelevised matches that happened before the show, but they would show them on YouTube, which was really, really fun. And usually contained independent wrestlers not signed to AEW. And Megan Bay was a pretty big part of it for the time. She then made her way to Japan after Dark and Elevation were discontinued. Had a pretty darn good career here. And now she's back, and she pretty much overpowers both Statlander and Hayter. Hayter tries for a Haterade, but that gets blocked. Then Megan Bay with a roll through. Competitor number 4, Julia Hart. And she doesn't get her full entrance, but she goes right after Jamie Hayter. They kind of brawl on the ramp for a little bit, with Megan Bay and Chris Statlander fighting in the ring. Competitor number 5, Willow Nightingale. Always good to see her. She gets right in. Big old boot, couple elbows, blocking a suplex. Drives Jamie Hayter into the barricade. And then a big old pounce, which is always great to see. And then we get the countdown to competitor number 6. It's rookie Toni Storm. Great to see her. Got a big pop. She counters a Death Valley driver into a roll-up for a 1 count. And then she starts doing takeovers and shoulder blocks to everybody, which that's honestly kind of funny. Gets tossed to the outside. Everyone else starts to fight, including some drop kicks, a DDT, big old clothesline, crossbody, cannonball by Willow, which, dang, hip attack by Toni Storm, big kick by Megan Bay. Competitor number 7, Harley Cameron. And she starts pretty much just running things from there. Jamie Hayter tries for a hate breaker. That gets blocked into a roll-up for a 2. Julia with a big old insecurity. Hayter tries for hits a hate breaker. Goes for the Haterade, but that gets blocked. Julia Hart then hits the mist on Hayter. Then with a clothesline. Toni Storm with the roll-up. So your winner and going to Grand Slam, which is going to be over in Australia, Toni Storm. So it's going to be a rematch. I'm wondering if we're going to see Timeless Toni Storm. Now, here's my only issue with this match. I do wish more of the women got a spotlight, because it definitely felt like this match was rushing to get to the end. But, yeah, definitely a good little showcase for the women here. Hopefully we get some more going forward. And that leads us to our main event of the evening, and it's for the AEW World Title, as Jon Moxley takes on Powerhouse Hobbs. And before the bell rings, we see Pac, Claudio, along with Marina Shafir. They're surrounding the ring before the bell rings. They get up on the apron. It looks like they're going to attack Hobbs. Hobbs is kind of turning around, don't know which way the next attack is coming. Then Moxley with a big old elbow strike from behind. Bell rings, and we are off to the races. And Mox keeps control of Hobbs for a little while. Eventually, Hobbs just does power out. Moxley about halfway through with an eye rake and then a bite. Which, dang. Then we had Hobbs. It looks like he's trying to take off Moxley's earring. Eventually he bites it off, which leads Mox to bleed from the ear, which is crazy. Hobbs with a big old shoulder tackle to Mox off the apron. Gets him back in. Cutter from Moxley. Moxley then tosses Hobbs to the outside. Shafir then attacks Hobbs with the case while the ref is distracted. Slides him back in. Mox goes for the Death Rider. That gets blocked into a shoulder tackle and a couple of clotheslines. Hobbs goes for Snake Eyes. That gets blocked. Moxley goes for Paradigm Shift. That gets blocked into a Body Slam, only for a 2 count. Hobbs tries for a fallaway slam that gets blocked, with Moxley getting an arm breaker on Hobbs. Hobbs then bites his way out. Mox then complains to the ref for a little bit. Backs the ref into the corner. Busaiku knee from Wheeler Yuta. That gets Mox and Hobbs back in. Mox tries for a paradigm shift. That gets blocked into a big old spine buster. Hobbs tries for a backbreaker. That gets blocked into a rear naked choke. But Hobbs hangs on for a little bit. This leads to Shafir to use the case again on Hobbs, right to the head. Moxley goes for a pinfall, only gets a 2. Moxley with a paradigm shift, only for a 2 count. Then locks Hobbs in the bulldog choke, in which Hobbs doesn't tap out, but he passes out. So your winner, and still AEW champion, Jon Moxley. Post-match, the Death Riders just a big old beatdown on Hobbs. Hobbs tries to fight back. Claudio with a big chair shot. Then they take off Hobbs' knee brace. Wraps one chair around. Moxley with a stomp to the chair to the knee. And then Rated RK FTR make the save post-match. So, I'm going to say this. Dynamite was definitely a bit more of a mixed bag. The wrestling was really, really good. But I am surprised AEW didn't try to pivot from the Death Riders storyline. Because, honestly, the Death Riders storyline isn't that interesting anymore. Is there ways? Is there maybe some ways to fix it? Sure, but AEW used to be really good at pivoting away from storylines that either didn't make any sense or didn't wow it, buddy. So, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens moving forward. So, that'll do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. On Monday, probably going to be covering SmackDown and Collision, along with getting results for TNA Genesis, which should be an interesting show. Till next time, happy wrestling, everybody. Peace.